Hey yo, all my Philly Frenzy people, what is good? We are back today on the Philly Frenzy podcast. I'm your host, Matt. As always, I'm with my buddy Rob. What is going on, Rob?
You know, just enjoying a beautiful day here in lovely New Jersey, where we're from. It's not really lovely. And excited to do this pod today. We're going to be talking a little bit more NFL right now, going into some awards, like we mentioned at the end of the show yesterday. So, without further ado, let's get it started, buddy.
All right, I'm going to do something a little different. The way we did it yesterday, I didn't like the way that it turned out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it off this way. If you like what you're hearing today or in the past, go ahead and hit that like button, that subscribe button, and go ahead and leave a comment. You know, this is Philly Frenzy Podcast. Let's get this thing going big. But also, hit us up on Twitter. Philly Frenzy PC is the main podcast Twitter. Also, you can follow Rob at Rob Danka, or follow myself at White Daddy Shack. And then if you are on Facebook, go ahead and type in Philly Frenzy Podcast. Hit us with a like. All news dropping on our main Twitter and our Facebook page. And if you're here, that means you're on our YouTube, Philly Frenzy Podcast on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment. Let's get into this NFL award type show we got. We got about a quarter of the way into the season, a little bit over a quarter. Last night we had a very, very good Monday night game with the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. We had the Buffalo Bills 4-1 going to Tennessee, playing the 3-2 Tennessee Titans. Tennessee ended up shaking our power rankings up a little bit after last night's game. Derrick Henry continues to be a force, a workhorse, on top of being that force. And the biggest takeaway from that game was how good Derrick Henry is, even when you're playing a top-ranked defense against the run, as Buffalo was going into last night. Why I'm starting at that spot is because my offensive player of the week after last night would be Derrick Henry. Before last night's game, I was sitting on CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a hell of a game-winning touchdown in overtime for the Cowboys against New England. But what Derrick Henry did last night is so much better than, a couple catches. I mean, can't really say a couple catches. He had 10 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And one of them was a game-winning touchdown. But what Derrick Henry did, Derrick Henry pretty much carried that team to a victory last night offensively. And he's been doing that now that Tennessee's sitting at 4-2. So in my eyes, with 3 touchdowns, over 140 rushing yards, Derrick Henry had to be my offensive player of the week. Rob, how are you feeling? Where are you sitting? Who's your offensive player of the week?
Well, before last night, mine was going to be Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, who had a heck of a game this past weekend. But I can't give it to any other running back this week other than King Henry, proving why, once again, he is the best pure runner in the league. And on one of his touchdown runs last night, he got clocked as the fastest runner in the NFL this year so far.
He drives faster than my grandmom. 21.8 miles.
Yeah, he almost was running at 22 miles per hour. This man is 247 pounds, and he is pulling away from corners that are like $190 to 205. It's insane. He's a freak of nature. Combination of size, speed, power. He's got good movement as well. He's a stud. He has a chance to win, I think, many more awards again at the end of this season in the NFL, and he has strapped the Titans on his back again this year. And like you mentioned, against Buffalo, who going into that game was one of the better run defenses in the NFL, made it even more impressive. Buffalo still looks good to me, but that was a really, really big win for the Titans last night against a really tough defensive opponent, and Derrick Henry balled out. So he is my offensive player of the week as well.
Yes, we got big Derrick Henry winning offensive player of the week. When we switch over to now the defensive side, we're gonna go with a defensive player of the week. We do both agree on the defensive player of the week as well. At one point, before we get to who it is, at one point I was debating between Max Crosby, who had 3 sacks for Oakland and a 34-24 victory, and then I also sat down and kind of thought, Trevon Diggs might get it with the interception late in the game, which turned into a pick 6, which ultimately put Dallas ahead, and then got beat on a double move, which didn't dictate him not winning Defensive Player of the Week. But going into another overtime game, Sunday night, we had Pittsburgh against Seattle, a struggling Seattle team with no Russell Wilson because of finger injury, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers team who's struggling because Ben Roethlisberger's 500 years old. We ended up getting a 23-20 victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers in overtime, but what led to that field goal, which ended up winning the game, was a fumble recovery by my defensive player of the week, TJ Watt. TJ Watt had 6 total tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss. Not only did he have 3 tackles for a loss, he had 3 pass deflections with the forced fumble, or was it the fumble? Yeah, the forced fumble to secure Pittsburgh's opportunity to kick a field goal and beat Seattle's team without Russell Wilson. I'm pretty sure I hit on everything there, Rob, with TJ, but there might be something else.
TJ turned down for Watt is the best defensive player in the AFC for sure, and he's up there with Aaron Donald as most talented guys in the league. This kid is insane. The pass deflections in that game stood out to me so much. Just his ability to understand that if he can't get, and we saw it with his brother when he was in his prime, JJ, all the time. They just know when they're not going to get to the quarterback, and they just drop into a passing lane, and they're always around the ball. So, I mean, to me, after his performance, and basically was, in my opinion, the biggest reason Pittsburgh won that game top to bottom, he definitely was the defensive player of the week to me. You gave the honorable mentions to Max Crosby and to Diggs from the Cowboys. I think, they both had excellent weeks, but what TJ Watt did literally wrecked that whole game and gave Pittsburgh a win.
Let's stay on that side of the football as we get into our front runners for the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going to let you start with your Defensive Player of the Year. This name isn't going to surprise anyone, but the floor is yours, Rob.
Well, I think after all the glowing things you just heard both myself and Matt say about him, TJ Watt. TJ Watt is currently the guy I have picked for my Defensive Player of the Year. He's got 7 sacks on the season. I think he's got 5 or 6 pass deflections now on the season, a couple forced fumbles and recoveries, good amount of tackles. Gives that Steelers team a identity on defense that they don't have when he's not there, because I think one of the worst defensive performances they had this year, statistically and just visually, was against my Raiders when TJ Watt, luckily for me, was out, which is one of the reasons we were able to win that game. They just don't look as strong without him, and he changes the complexion of that team on both sides of the ball, really. But right now, I just think he's done the most to disrupt games, and I know people are probably going to be all over me for not giving this to that kid Diggs, but he's good, but he gives up too many yards for my taste.
Now, I said a lot when I said the Defensive Player of the Week for us was TJ Watt. So I might take a little bit heat for this, but my defensive player front runner right now is Trevon Diggs, and that's probably going to surprise a lot of people that know I'm an Eagles fan. That I'm going with a Dallas Cowboy cornerback for Defensive Player of the Year. But what Trayvon Diggs is doing, he's got 7 picks through 6 games. He's on pace for, say 1 a game for the rest of the season. Kind of what he's been doing right now. What's that? 14, 20 interceptions, 19 interceptions. So 19, 20 interceptions. I mean, it's not feasible for him to do that, but if he ends up, getting close, I think with these 7 picks, 2 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, and the 1 interception being against New England kind of got them the lead back late in the fourth quarter. If that continues to happen throughout the season, and I believe if Dallas continues to be, a top 5 team in the NFL, and Diggs is one of the reasons why, because he's coming up with turnover after turnover, there's no way you can't go with Trevon Diggs. And what a lot of people forget with Diggs is that he was a 2nd-round pick, and a lot of GMs are quoted for saying that he might not be an NFL-ready cornerback, and he's in his 2nd season because he transitioned from receiver to corner at Alabama, and I believe that's one of the reasons why he's such a good ball hawk, I guess you could call him. He understands the positioning that you need as a receiver, and he runs these routes like he is a receiver. When he does get these interceptions, he's running the route like he's the receiver, and he's cutting off the receiver, and you're seeing him being able to make the break on the ball a lot better than the guy that he's going up against. So I feel like that helps him, and if he continues to play this way, Trevon Diggs, to me, is clear-cut favorite for Defensive Player of the Year because he's going to break the record for most interceptions in the season.
I will say, I was doing mine on if I was awarding it right now. I do agree with you, though. If Diggs continues on this pace for interceptions, unless T.J. Watt breaks the sack record, then that would make this real interesting. But if he breaks the records for most interceptions in a season, then yeah, there's no way he can't win it. I don't care how many yards he gives up, but I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up that pace. I hope he does. I'd love to see it, but that's a big ask, especially of a young guy who has been, playing out of his mind right now. So we'll see how the season progresses, but right now, I don't have any problems with you picking Diggs, that's for sure.
All right, so we're going to save the MVP frontrunner for last. I think we should jump into our power rankings. Our power rankings are very similar. Starting at the bottom, we both have number 10, the Las Vegas Raiders. Rob, that is your team. How do you feel 6 weeks into the season? Did you expect to be in this top 10 area? Were you expecting to be a little bit higher?
No, absolutely not. I did not expect to be anywhere near the top 10, to be honest with you. I thought the Raiders would be horrible. I didn't know that we did enough to improve defensively, which so far this year, the defense has looked 1,000 times better than it did last season for them, which is one of the biggest things. But I also just thought that we are in a tough division. I didn't think the Chiefs were going to be this bad. And we also got rid of pretty much our entire starting offensive line from last year. So I thought that was going to be more of a hindrance than it's been. The offensive line hasn't been great, but it's been good enough. And Carr is making it work, and he's playing his best ball since the year that he was an MVP candidate until he got hurt. So I'm very shocked that the Raiders are up here, but right now, looking around the league, I couldn't put them any lower than that.
I have them slotted here at 10. I do agree with what you're saying. I do believe at the end of week 7, there is a chance that Las Vegas you could see slide up past this 10 spot. Playing against a mediocre Philadelphia Eagles team this weekend, who are currently 3-point underdogs against Las Vegas.
Which is just home field, by the way, for us. So that's Vegas saying that we're only as good as the Eagles.
So you might see the Raiders move up a little bit depending on how that game goes and what the 9 guys in front of them do. Jumping from the Raiders, we go to number 9, which is a team I don't think anybody would be surprised by both of us having here slotted at 9. I don't think a lot of teams or a lot of players. Jesus. I don't think a lot of people expected this team to make the jump this quick. And that is the Los Angeles Chargers sitting here at 9. You saw last year they lost so many games that were single possession. They're putting it all together this year. Justin Herbert is definitely an MVP candidate if he continues to play the way he does besides the Baltimore game. And they're AFC West team, Rob. So what do we got with this Chargers team? Are they as good as their record shows?
So going into this year, I thought that the Chargers would be the second best team in this division. I did have higher expectations for them than most people. I think a lot of people thought us or maybe the Broncos would be the second best team in the division, and the Chargers would kind of still need another year. I expected a jump strictly because of what I saw out of Herbert last year. I just could tell this kid was the real deal, which pains me to say because it's going to be real tough for the Raiders not to have the third best quarterback in their division, no matter who they have right now with Mahomes and Herbert in the division. Their major issue is their defense. Their defense is not very good, and their offensive line is better this year, but it's not great. So kind of the same weaknesses as the Raiders. I just think that Justin Herbert and not having any distractions as a team makes the Chargers a little bit better. Also, the fact that they handed us our asses when we played them head-to-head so far. So I can't put the Raiders above the Chargers when the Chargers beat us head-to-head.
Fair enough. So jumping to number 8, we do have our first disagreement, I guess you would call it, at number 8 on my top 10 power rankings for the week. I have the Green Bay Packers, while you have the Tennessee Titans. With the Green Bay Packers, and why I have them slotted as the 8th best team, you see a lot of the faults they have defensively, and their offensive line is nowhere near healthy. And Rodgers doesn't. To me, like, yeah, Rodgers' numbers look good, but this isn't the Rodgers of last season, and this Green Bay team only goes as far as Rodgers can take them, and I don't feel that at this point in time they are a top 4 team in the NFC. So I guess that kind of gives away that I have 4 teams ahead of them in this power ranking from the NFC. But, you know, I feel like they're on the outside looking in when you kind of look at the NFC. I feel like they're the 5th best team. And when you look at the AFC, I think there's a couple other teams that are better than them AFC-wise. So, you know, that's why I have them sitting here at 8. I know you have them sitting at 7.
Yes. So I have the Titans here at 8. And a lot of that is because of how much they impressed me offensively last night against that good Bills team. So I got the Titans here. I can't put them much higher than that. You know, I know they beat the Bills, but I don't think it would happen again, just being honest.
I have them higher than this.
But, you know... and then at 7, I do have the Packers, who you just had at 8. I do agree with you that, I mean, it's obvious to say that they go as far as Rodgers takes them. If they lose Rodgers, they're done. Just like if any team loses their starting quarterback, they're normally done.
In this top 10, they lose their quarterback, they're done. Now, Tennessee might be able to hold it because of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but you know what? They got, they have a good lead on them right now, but if they lost Tannehill, they'd have to win enough games because I think Indy's hot right now, and they're going to stay that way.
Yeah.
So Tennessee has to stay hot, or they could lose that lead in that division pretty quick, I think. I think the Colts are kind of turning it around finally, but They're not in my top 10. So, yeah, I got Green Bay above Tennessee because I just think if they played head to head, I'd have to go with Aaron Rodgers. It's literally the Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams factor, and how much more explosive Green Bay could be. Um, so I would just take Rodgers over Tennessee right now. So that's why I kind of have them that way. I think they're pretty close though. So who do you have at 7?
All right, so what we're gonna do is for 4 through 7, we're just gonna name our guys. So, and then 1, 2, and 3, we'll have a little bit of the conversation. So we're not here for 4 hours, just talking team by
Yep.
team. So at number 7, you have the Green Bay Packers. I have the Buffalo Bills. After last night's performance, I kind of brought them down a lot further than you did, but I like a couple other teams ahead of them. At number 6, I'm sitting with the Tennessee Titans. You have
I
the
have the Bucks.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
The Tampa Bay Gronkaneers.
At number 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens. You have...
The Buffalo Bills.
And at,
I'm sorry. I know they lost last night to a team that's below them in this rankings. I all think we know that if they meet in the playoffs, I think it would go the other way. The Bills are still a wagon. They still have the highest point differential in the league, and it's not close, by the way. They're over 100 points positive in the points differential. The next closest team is, I think, 80 something. So let's not be overreacting to this loss by the Bills. I still think they're one of the top 5 teams in football.
all right. And at 4, I got Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you have...
The Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson.
So getting into our top 3, we'll jump around a little bit because we both have the same top 3. As everyone's expecting, our number 1 in our power rankings for both of us is the Arizona Cardinals.
Yep,
They're
it's
six,
not close.
They're 6-0.
Undefeated. Kyler Murray is ridiculous. They have a ton of weapons on offense that, we're seeing a little resurgence here from A.J. Green, at least in the red zone. And they just picked up Zach Ertz from your Philadelphia Eagles this week to just bolster the roster even more. So
Yeah, class act by
I think
Zach
they're
Ertz.
a juggernaut right now.
Big class act by Zach Ertz, going ahead and getting a page in the Philadelphia Times or whatever it's called, and doing a whole article on thanking the Philadelphia fans and the city of Philadelphia for the time that he was here. I've always thought Zach was a class act that just proved it with no questions for anybody in the NFL or even an everyday person to question. I do think you might see a little bit of a
He's always
resurgence.
been one of the. Oh God, yeah. I think he's just going to be another weapon. Like, think about them in the red zone now.
Yeah.
You got Ertz, you got AJ Green, you got Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Connor out of the backfield, Chase Edmonds out of the backfield. They got weapons on offense for Kyler this year. They are going. It's clear. Their message to the league is clear. We're going to win a Super Bowl, and we're going to win a Super Bowl right now. That's their goal. They don't have any other aspirations with what they did this offseason and what they're continuing to do. It's very clear that they are going for a Super Bowl this year. Are we off record? So both of us at number 2 right now have the Los Angeles Rams. I think it's pretty obvious why. They're one of the top defenses in the league. The offense looks fantastic. Matt Stafford looks amazing. He's got 16 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. It's a 4-to-1 ratio. He's towards the top in touchdowns, top in yards in the league right now. Obviously, the Rams are 5-1 as well. In a tough division, they're kind of separating themselves, other than the Cardinals. So, I mean, both of those teams are going to make the playoffs. It's going to be crazy to think that one of them is going to end up a wild card because of the other. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But
yeah, and with the Rams,
Matt,
it's a completely different team compared to last year with this Rams new addition with Matthew Stafford. So, and you're seeing the issues that were holding the Rams back in past years now showing up in Detroit with Jared Goff. So Stafford has definitely made this team so much better than I think a lot of people expected him to. He's another guy that, you know, when we talk MVP frontrunners, Stafford's got to be a guy that's in this conversation, because Stafford has not only elevated his game, but he's elevated the game around him and how good the players are now. Cooper Kupp's having one hell of a season. And, you know, everyone knew he was a good receiver, but now he's becoming an even better receiver. Robert Woods looks good. Oh, wow. Hold on. Deshaun Jackson's actually making something happen with himself over with the Rams. So, you know, give him a quarterback, and these guys are starting to look good. You also got Sony Michel there in the backfield, who's, you know, still having his issues fumbling the ball, but every once in a while you start to see signs that Sony may be your number one back. But they also have, what's his name, Henderson, who looks good. So, you know, that offense
looked good this year.
That's probably, you know, when you talk 1-2 in our power rankings, we got Cardinals and Rams, and they really are 1-2 in this offensive game. The biggest separation between the two of them is how good the Cardinals defense has been playing compared to the lack of great defense by the Rams team. So you're getting the firepower from both offenses.
They've been good, but they've been good on defense, but they haven't been great. And I gotta see Aaron Donald get home a little more, which to me, the fact that he's not is telling me that the rest of that line isn't doing enough to make other teams warrant not double blocking it. So I think they do need to step it up a little bit defensively. Offensively, they're as explosive as almost anybody in the league. And Stafford's ability to get the ball downfield and to make the right reads is the biggest differences you see from this team with him to the way it was with Jared Goff. And you can see Jared Goff struggle in Detroit. You know, not that he has a great situation in Detroit, but they do have some weapons offensively, but his decision-making has been poor.
So that brings us to the final team on our power rankings, which is number 3, which is the Dallas Cowboys. Both ways, when you talk about explosive offenses, you can't have a conversation without what Dallas is doing right now. Probably the best run pass.
Been impressive.
Probably the best run pass combo in the league right now, with what Zeke, Pollard, and Dak has been doing. You know, when you got Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb playing at such a high level, you still don't have Michael Gallup back from injury yet, and your tight ends actually look good. You got an offensive line that's healthy. Dak is also making a case for, you know, MVP this early on. My biggest concern with the Cowboys is their defense, and, you know, Trevon Diggs is really the guy that's helping this team get the takeaways. And for how much longer is Trevon Diggs going to be able to carry this defense when they need that stop? And that's kind of what scares me with this Dallas team. I know Michael Irvin went out on a limb yesterday and said, Dallas Cowboy fans, go buy your Super Bowl tickets. This is only week 6 power rankings, but I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't see them being in my top 5 going into the playoffs, only because we all know how Dallas has been for the last 20 years. You get to the playoffs, they choke. So, I'm not that high on them. I do have them sitting here at 3, but that's because of how explosive their offense has been so far. And, the defensive struggles kind of stopped them from being ahead of the Rams, even though the Rams' defense hasn't been great. The Rams' defense has been a little bit more solid.
The Rams' defense has been better.
Yes.
Yeah, the Rams' defense has been better than theirs. Just by a little bit. Like you said, without all these turnovers by Diggs, where are they? Because they're definitely not at the record they're at right now. What Dak is doing is absolutely incredible. The dude's a stud. He's another guy right now front running for the MVP conversation towards the top of the league in yards. Same as Matt Stafford, 16 touchdowns, 4 picks, 4-to-1 ratio. The only problem they have right now is an old man named Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Who has 2,000 yards already this year, 17 touchdowns and 3 picks, playing like he's 22 out there. And another guy who we're going to talk about shortly here. But, yeah, Dallas, it pains me to put them at 3. I hate them.
It pains you.
Yeah, I know, but it pains you more. But I'm just letting our viewers know that I am also not pro-Cowboys. So, yeah, with that, that's it for the power rankings. So we saved the best for last here. We're dangling the carrot to keep you guys to the end. Who do we think is the NFL MVP through 6 weeks? You heard us, talk about some front runners there in the power rankings, both Matt and I. But Matt, why don't you lead off right now? 6 weeks into the NFL season, who is the MVP?
The NFL MVP 6 weeks in, the front runner is the NFL referees for screwing everybody out of good games. No, I'm kidding. It's definitely Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. A lot of knocks on this kid coming out of college. It was, he's too small. Can he actually play in the NFL? How great is his arm talent? Can he read defenses? And what Kyler Murray has done this season, and, Cliff Kingsbury definitely deserves a lot of credit as well. And what that front office has done to bring in the talent around Murray to be this good. Murray is the MVP by default at the moment. He's got the 14 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's on pace to throw for close to 5,000 yards. He's taking care of the football. He's almost 4-to-1 in touchdown to interception ratio. But if this team isn't 6-0, we're talking Tom Brady or Derrick Henry. So, as much as I'm going to sit here and hype up Kyler Murray's my MVP frontrunner after 6 weeks, but for how much longer?
When do they start losing games? That's
exactly. If this team
changes everything.
If this team goes 17-0, Rob and I will both tell you Kyler Murray is the MVP. But if this team goes 16-1 and Tampa goes 15-2 and Brady's throwing for 55 touchdowns again, it's Brady. So
yeah,
it's gonna fall on the whole team, which usually when it's single accolade is what one player does, but when it comes to a quarterback position, we base it a lot off of your team record on top of what you're doing statistically, and that's why I have Kyler Murray 1, Brady's sitting right there at 2, and then I got Derrick Henry sitting at 3, but it's a lot closer. Them dark horses 4, 5, and 6, we talked about Stafford, Herbert, and Dak, them 3 guys. One bad game by Kyler could go from being our MVP frontrunner to being at the bottom of the 6 that I have right now. So it's a lot. There's a lot going in with Kyler. It's not just what he's doing individually, but it's that team record. And you see that a lot when it comes to the NFL and how these MVPs are chosen. That's why I ended up going with Kyler Murray. Rob, go ahead and hit on why you selected Kyler.
So, pretty much for the same reasons you just gave. It has a lot to do with the fact that his team's 6-0. They haven't lost. He's a big reason why they're winning. It's not what it's just what he does through the air, which has been spectacular this year, but also his ability to use his feet, even if it's just to extend a play, is part of what makes him special. The Like you said though, I think once they lose a couple games, just like everybody else has, if they do, I won't say once they do, if they do, they could go undefeated. I'm not going to take that away from them. If they don't, though, like you said, it brings some other guys into the conversation. Definitely Derrick Henry, Tom Brady would be the two main ones. Right now, Tom Brady, if he keeps up this exact pace that he's been on for yards and touchdowns, he will throw about 47 or 48 touchdowns by the end of the year and throw for just under 5,900 yards in a 17-game season. My man is ancient and still showing that he's the best quarterback and pure thrower of the football in the league.
Yeah, so I mean that's where we are with our NFL 6-week award show. I do believe that we're going to start doing this more often. Not so much the MVP and defensive front runner. Our offense and defensive player of the week, and then we will touch on our power rankings about every week. That's definitely something that we're interested in doing. Maybe when we hit about week 10, 11, we'll do another who's our MVP, defensive player of the year front runners, and kind of hit on that. I do know we have another show today, Rob, which is very exciting. We got the NBA starting tonight, 7:00 on TNT. We got Milwaukee and Brooklyn. So, without further ado, I'm going to shut us down. We'll be back running the NBA special and talking everything Philadelphia 76ers to opening day NBA basketball tonight. So, until then, Philly Frenzy out.